My cousin ruined my graduation with her jealous outburst. Graduation day is supposed to be one of those moments you never forget, a day filled with pride, celebration, and the kind of joy that makes all the late-night study sessions and endless assignments worth it. For me, it was all of that. Until my cousin decided to turn it into a battlefield. I'm Sophie, a 22-year-old who just graduated with a degree in environmental science from a small college in Portland, Oregon. I'd spent 4 years working toward this moment, and I was ready to soak in every second of it. But my cousin Madison, who's 23 and has always had a chip on her shoulder, had other plans. Her jealous outburst during my speech left everyone stunned, and what happened next changed the way I see family forever. The morning of my graduation started with a golden glow filtering through my dorm window, the kind of light that promises a perfect day. I woke up to the sound of my roommate, Lily, a 21-year-old biology major with a laugh that could wake the dead, humming off-key in the shower. "Big day, Soph," she called through the door, her voice muffled by the running water. I smiled, stretching under my quilt, the air in our tiny room smelling faintly of coffee and the lavender candle we'd burned the night before. I'd laid out my graduation outfit days ago, simple white dress with a flowy skirt, paired with the emerald green cap and gown that made my hazel eyes pop. I felt like I was on top of the world, ready to walk across that stage and make my family proud. My family had driven up from Eugene to be there, piling into the campus auditorium with their usual chaotic energy. Mom, a 48-year-old elementary school teacher with a knack for knitting, was fussing over my cap, her hands warm as she adjusted the tassel. "You look beautiful, honey," she said, her eyes misty as she pulled me into a hug, the scent of her vanilla perfume wrapping around me. Dad, a 50-year-old electrician with a graying beard and a love for classic rock, was already cracking jokes, nudging my younger brother Ethan, a 17-year-old high school junior who'd rather be anywhere else. "Don't trip on the stage, Soph," Dad teased, his grin wide as Ethan rolled his eyes, his earbuds dangling around his neck. My Aunt Clara, a 45-year-old florist with a bright smile and a habit of talking too fast, had brought a bouquet of daisies, their petals soft against my hands as she handed them to me. "For my favorite graduate," she said, her voice bubbly as she snapped a photo with her phone. My Uncle Ben, a 47-year-old accountant who always wore plaid shirts, was busy filming everything on his ancient camcorder, muttering about how these moments need to be preserved. And then there was Madison, my cousin who'd come with her parents. She was 23, a year older than me, with sharp cheekbones and a smile that never quite reached her eyes. She'd been distant all morning, her arms crossed as she leaned against a wall, her black dress stark against the pastel colors of the auditorium. Madison and I had never been close, even as kids. Growing up, she was the kind of cousin who'd always compare herself to me or grades, our hobbies, even how many Christmas presents we got. I'd gotten used to her little jabs over the years, like when she'd say, "Oh, Sophie, you're so lucky you don't have to try hard to be liked," her tone sharp enough to sting. I'd always brushed it off, figuring she'd grow out of it, but she never did. My best friend, Rachel, a 22-year-old aspiring journalist with a fiery personality and a love for oversized sunglasses, had warned me about her. "Madison's jealous of you, Soph," she'd said a few weeks ago, sipping a latte at our favorite campus cafe, the hum of espresso machines in the background. "She can't stand that you're doing so well." I didn't want to believe it. I thought graduation would be a day we could all celebrate together, a day where family drama would take a back seat. But as I stood backstage, waiting for my turn to give my speech, I'd been chosen to speak as one of the top students in my program. I couldn't shake the feeling that Madison was watching me a little too closely. The auditorium was packed, the air buzzing with excitement as families filled the seats, their voices a low hum against the soft classical music playing through the speakers. I adjusted my cap, my palms sweaty, and took a deep breath. This was my moment, and I wasn't going to let anything ruin it, or so I thought. The auditorium felt like a living thing, its energy humming through the rows of seats as I stepped onto the stage, my green gown swishing softly around my knees. The lights were bright, casting a warm glow over the crowd, and I could see my family in the third row, Mom clutching Dad's hand, her smile wide and proud. Ethan slouched beside them, his earbuds now tucked into his pocket. Aunt Clara was already dabbing at her eyes with a tissue, her bouquet of daisies resting on her lap, while Uncle Ben held up his camcorder, the red recording light blinking steadily. I adjusted the microphone, the faint squeak echoing through the speakers, and took a deep breath, my note cards trembling slightly in my hands. This was it, the speech I'd spent weeks preparing, the moment I'd dreamed of sharing with everyone who'd supported me. I started strong, my voice steady as I thanked my professors, my friends, and my family for getting me through the last 4 years. I wouldn't be here without the people who believed in me, I said, glancing at Mom, whose eyes were shining with tears. The crowd clapped softly, a ripple of applause that made my chest swell with pride. I was just about to share a funny story about my first biology labo. I'd accidentally spilled a beaker of pond water on Lily, who'd screamed loud enough to scare the lab rats when I heard a voice cut through the air like a knife. "Oh, please, Sophie, spare us the perfect act!" It was Madison, her tone sharp and venomous, her words slicing through the quiet auditorium. I froze, my breath catching in my throat as every head turned toward her. She was standing near the back, her arms crossed, her black dress stark against the pastel sea of graduation attire. Her face was twisted with a mix of anger and satisfaction, her eyes locked on mine like she'd been waiting for this moment all day. The auditorium fell silent, the kind of silence that feels heavy, suffocating, as if the air itself was holding its breath. I saw Mom's smile falter, her hand tightening around Dad's, while Ethan sat up straighter, his brows furrowing in confusion. Aunt Clara whispered something to Uncle Ben, who lowered his camcorder, his mouth agape. Even Lily, who was sitting with her parents a few rows back, turned to stare, her hands gripping the edge of her seat. Madison didn't stop. She took a step forward, her voice rising, each word a dagger aimed straight at me. "You've always been the golden child, Sophie," she said, her tone dripping with bitterness. "The perfect daughter, the perfect student, everyone's favorite. You've been stealing the spotlight since we were kids, and I'm sick of it." Her words echoed through the auditorium, bouncing off the walls, and I felt my face burn with humiliation. The crowd shifted uncomfortably, a low murmur rippling through the seats as people exchanged glances, some whispering to their neighbors, others staring at me with pity in their eyes. I stood there, my note cards slipping from my fingers, fluttering to the stage like fallen leaves. My heart pounded in my chest, a mix of shock and anger swirling inside me, but I couldn't find my voice note yet. Rachel, who'd been sitting near the front with her oversized sunglasses perched on her head, shot to her feet, her voice fierce as she shouted, "Madison, sit down! This is Sophie's day!" But Madison ignored her, her eyes still fixed on me, daring me to respond. My professor, Dr. Ellis, a 60-year-old woman with silver hair and a no-nonsense attitude, stood up from her seat on the stage, her clipboard in hand, her voice sharp as she called out, "Young lady, that's enough. This is a graduation ceremony, not a soap opera. If this story is making your jaw drop as much as mine did, hit that like button and let me know in the comments what would you do if someone ruined your big moment like this." But the damage was done. I could feel the weight of everyone's stares, the pity, the curiosity, the judgment. My moment, the one I'd worked so hard for, was slipping away, tainted by Madison's jealousy. I glanced at my family again, searching for some kind of anchor. Mom's face was pale, her hands clasped tightly in her lap, while Dad's jaw was clenched, his eyes narrowed at Madison. Ethan had pulled out his phone, his fingers flying across the screen, probably texting his friends about the drama unfolding in front of him. I took a shaky breath, my hands clenching into fists at my sides, and made a decision. I wasn't going to let Madison ruin this day not without a fight. The silence in the auditorium stretched on, heavy and suffocating, as Madison's words lingered in the air like a storm cloud. I could feel the heat in my cheeks, the sting of humiliation burning through me, but beneath it, a spark of anger was growing, steady and fierce. I'd spent years brushing off Madison's jabs, swallowing my hurt to keep the peace, but this was too much. She'd crossed a line, and I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I bent down slowly, picking up my scattered note cards, the paper crinkling in my hands as I straightened up. The crowd was still watching, their whispers a soft hum in the background, the tension so thick it felt like the room might crack under its weight. I adjusted the microphone, my movements deliberate, my heart still racing, but my resolve hardening with every second. "Madison," I said, my voice low at first, but growing stronger as I spoke. "You've had a lot to say about me today, So let me return the favor. The auditorium went quiet again, the murmurs fading as everyone leaned in, their eyes wide with anticipation. Madison's smirk faltered, her arms uncrossing as she shifted her weight, her confidence starting to waver. I took a deep breath, the scent of the auditorium's polished wood and the faint floral perfume from the crowd grounding me, and let the truth spill out. For years you've been telling everyone how great you're doing, I said, my voice steady now, carrying across the room. You bragged about getting into that fancy university in California, didn't you? You told the whole family you were accepted, that you were going to be a big-shot lawyer someday. I paused, letting my words sink in, watching as Madison's face turned pale, her eyes darting to the side like she was looking for an escape. But here's the thing you never got in. You lied. You didn't even apply, because you were too scared to fail. Instead, you've been working at that same retail job for years, pretending you're something you're not. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd, the sound soft but sharp, like a wave breaking on the shore. Mom's hand flew to her mouth, her eyes wide with shock, while Dad's expression darkened, his arms crossing tightly over his chest. Aunt Clara whispered something to Uncle Ben, who'd finally stopped filming, his camcorder resting on his lap as he stared at Madison, his brow furrowed. Ethan looked up from his phone, his mouth slightly open, a rare moment of surprise breaking through his usual teenage indifference. Rachel, still standing near the front, gave me a small nod, her lips curling into a proud smile, her sunglasses now tucked into her bag as she watched the drama unfold. Madison's face crumpled, her bravado shattering like glass. "That's not true!" she shouted, but her voice cracked, the desperation in her tone betraying her. She took a step back, her heels catching on the carpet, and I saw tears welling in her eyes, her hands trembling as she clutched her purse. "You're lying, Sophie! You're just trying to make me look bad!" But the crowd wasn't buying it. I could see the doubt in their faces, the way they glanced at each other, their whispers growing louder now, a mix of shock and disbelief. "Doctor." Ella stepped forward again, her clipboard tucked under her arm, her voice firm as she said, "That's enough from both of you. This is a celebration, not a debate. Sophie, please finish your speech." But I couldn't, not after that. I shook my head, my throat tight with emotion, and stepped away from the microphone, my gown trailing behind me as I walked off the stage. The crowd erupted into murmurs, the sound swelling like a tide as I made my way to my family, my hands still shaking from the adrenaline. Rachel met me halfway, her arms wrapping around me in a fierce hug, her voice soft but fierce. "You didn't deserve that, Soph," she said, her breath warm against my ear. "I'm so proud of you for standing up to her." Mom and Dad were right behind her, their faces a mix of concern and anger, Mom's arms pulling me into a hug as Dad muttered, "Madison's got some explaining to do." Part 4. A demand for accountability. The rest of the graduation ceremony passed in a haze. I sat with my family, my gown feeling heavier than it had that morning, the weight of what had happened settling into my bones. The auditorium buzzed with the usual sounds of a graduation names being called, applause, the occasional cheer, but I couldn't focus on any of it. My mind kept replaying Madison's outburst, the way her words had cut through me, and the look on her face when I'd called her out. I'd always known she was jealous, but I never thought she'd take it this far, not on a day that meant so much to me. Rachel stayed close, her hand resting on mine, her presence a quiet comfort as we watched the last of my classmates cross the stage. Madison had disappeared after her outburst, slipping out of the auditorium while I was still on the stage. I didn't see her again until after the ceremony, when the crowd spilled out onto the campus lawn for photos and celebrations. The air was warm, the sun high in the sky, casting dappled shadows through the oak trees that lined the quad. Families gathered in clusters, their laughter mixing with the sound of a nearby fountain, the water sparkling in the sunlight. I stood with my family, forcing a smile as Uncle Ben insisted on taking a group photo, his camcorder now replaced with a digital camera. "Say diploma!" he called, and I managed a weak laugh, the daisies from Aunt Clara still clutched in my hands, their petals starting to wilt in the heat. I spotted Madison near the edge of the lawn, standing alone under a tree, her black dress a stark contrast to the bright colors around her. Her arms were wrapped around herself, her head bowed, and I could tell she'd been crying. Her mascara was smudged, her eyes red and puffy. Part of me wanted to ignore her, to let her stew in her own misery, but another part of me needed closure. I excused myself from my family, Rachel giving me a reassuring nod as I walked over, the grass soft under my heels, the faint scent of blooming lilacs in the air. Madison looked up as I approached, her expression a mix of guilt and defiance, her voice small as she said, "Sophie, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to ruin your day." I stopped a few feet away, my arms crossing over my chest, the diploma in its leather folder still tucked under my arm. "You didn't just ruin my day, Madison," I said, my voice calm but firm, the words flowing more smoothly now, my anger tempered by exhaustion. "You humiliated me in front of everyone, my family, my friends, my professors. You've been holding on to this jealousy for years, and I'm done pretending it's okay." She flinched, her eyes filling with tears again, but I kept going, my tone steady. "If you want to fix this, you need to own up to what you did. I want you to apologize to our family publicly at the next gathering. No excuses, no half-truths. If you can't do that, I don't see how we can move forward." Madison nodded, her hands twisting together, her voice barely a whisper as she said, "I'll do it. I promise." But there was a hesitation in her eyes, a flicker of doubt that made me wonder if she really meant it. I didn't say anything else. I just turned and walked back to my family, the weight of my diploma a small comfort in my hands. Mom pulled me into another hug, her voice soft as she said, "You handled that better than I could have, sweetheart." Dad nodded, his hand resting on my shoulder, his voice gruff. "She's got a lot to make up for." Ethan, who'd been quiet most of the day, looked up from his phone and muttered, "That was savage, Soph. Respect." In the days since, I've been trying to make sense of it all. Rachel has been my rock, dragging me out for ice cream and late-night talks, her laughter a reminder that I'm not alone. Lily keeps sending me memes about graduation drama, her texts lighting up my phone with a mix of humor and support. I've been thinking a lot about what family means, about the boundaries I need to set, even with the people I love. Madison hasn't reached out since that day, and I don't know if she'll follow through on her promise. Part of me hopes she will, for the sake of our family. But another part of me wonders if some relationships are too broken to fix. Either way, I'm learning to stand up for myself, to value my own worth, even when it's hard. If you enjoyed this dramatic story, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell for more Reddit tales. Have you ever had to confront a jealous family member? Let me know in the comments. I can't wait to hear your thoughts.